special, yeah.
Way above any of the Shiurs and
Correct. I mean, a Rebbe is, of course, a Rebbe is something altogether unique, not from, it's not something you could really describe because it's indescribable. It's interesting. You're asking me a question if the Rebbe was always a Rebbe, the Rebbe became a Rebbe. I had that question.
I can tell you, I don't know the answer.
First, let me hear Rabbi Karp's answer. What is it?
So Rabbi Shmuel Isaac Popak, who I knew very well,
Yeah.
he always held a very close connection with the Ramash, with the Rebbe before he was enough.
Yeah.
And after the Frierdiker Rebbe was not nostalgic, so he considered him to be the Rebbe right away.
Yeah.
And he would ask him shilas, the Rebbe would push him away. He would not answer. He did not want to be considered a Rebbe. Finally, his wife was going into labor, Shmuel Isaac, and he asked the Rebbe, please give a bracha. So the Rebbe gave a bracha, it should be easy and fine, healthy baby. And then he said, after it's finished, come back and tell me, how long did it take?
Yeah.
So it took about 17 hours.
Wow.
Very, very slow, difficult birthing. So he told him, when your father-in-law, I asked him for brachas, it would take, an hour, 2 hours. It was very good. Anyway, the Rebbe just, the next year, after Yud Aleph,
Yitzchok, yeah.
the Rebbe was already officially the Rebbe. His wife, he went into labor again, and he went there and he asked for a bracha, and the Rebbe gave him a bracha right away. And he says, come back and tell me how long it took afterwards.
Yeah.
It took about 19 minutes.
Wow. Hope she wasn't in too much pain. Wow.
So I have why? Because before he was not a Rebbe. Afterwards he was.
That's Rabbi Karp's answer. So there's a Farbrengen of the Rebbe from the year 1943, which is written down by one of the Bachrim, the students in 770. His last name is Weingarten. Don't remember his first name right now. Weingarten, and he wrote diaries and of everything that went on 770. And after he passed away, his grandchildren cleaning out the house, and they were going to put it in Shemus, and somebody saw what they were, and Baruch Hashem, they weren't, and all these diaries were published. He only published 2 of them so far. The one from 1943 takes up a full book, a full sefer. The one from 1944, 45, I think was published, and the ones from 45 and 46, 47, 48 have not been published yet. But it's so rich to see. He writes down everything that went on in 770 at that time. So all Farbrengens of the Ramash, of the Rebbe from before he became Rebbe. You had Farbrengens from Shmuel Levitin, or Farbrengen from David Shifrin, Michal Dvarkin, Farbrengens from the students who came from Atvatsk, from Poland, ran away to Canada, and finally came to Frierdiker Rebbe in 1943. And it's just, a lot of stories are now more well-known. A lot of them are not well-known at all. But one of the Farbrengens of the Rebbe, he only has about 3 or 4 actual Farbrengens of the Rebbe, calls them the Ramash. And the Rebbe says in those Farbrengens that a Rebbe is born a Rebbe, can't just become a Rebbe. You're born with a koiches to become a Rebbe and with the ability. You can't, someone who wasn't born, and the Rebbe brought several examples, one of the Rebbe Marash and one of the Frierdiker Rebbe from when they were children, how you can already see how they would be a Rebbe. So I think the answer is, pretty clear, but perhaps after the Rebbe officially accepts the Messias, it's a different story, it's a different level.
Yeah.
There's a lot with
There was a lot of people that were angry that his father, the Frierdiker Rebbe took over instead of the
Rebbe's father.
His father, and of course the Rebbe Marash was the youngest of all the brothers, right? Of the Rashab. He's the youngest of all the brothers.
Rebbe Marash was the youngest. Yeah, there's we could delve into the Chabad history, Mr. Shem, at 12 o'clock. Meantime, we're gonna learn some Gemara. That's
It's a very interesting actually thing, as far as the family history.
There's a Gemara. The Mai Kamifligi. We had Rabbi NIssan, he made a statement that a shul in a big city is a shul can never be sold. We asked several questions on that based on the Holy Temple, based on Hamikdash, is not considered to be divided to Shvatim, divided to the tribes, but the other shuls in Yerushalayim are allowed to be divided by tribes. means it could be sold. We asked another question. There was a shul which the copper smelters used to have because they smelled so bad, no one else would join them.
Smelters, because they smell so good.
Maybe that's why they're called smelters, yes. And Rabbi Eliezer bought the shul and he used it for whatever he wanted, not just for a shul, but for his living quarters. So he said these are individual shuls. Then he explains that Rabbi NIssan explains that Rabbi Yehuda says that the Beis Hamikdash cannot become tamei with nigayim, with leprosy, which is literally yesterday's, I think, chumash. Okay, maybe today's chumash also, both of them. I didn't do chumash today yet, but I'm going to put Tiferes with Eretz achuzaschem in the land where you're going to live. He says, it was meaning the Beis Hamikdash. So now that we established that according to Rabbi Yehuda, a house in Yerushalayim could become tamei, could become impure with tzaras. Right? Tzaras is, we said, the spot, the green or the red spot on the house, which expands, and if it continues expanding, if it never gets small, even after they replace the bricks, then the house has to be demolished, completely knocked down. Rabbi Yehuda says Beis Hamikdash cannot be demolished, cannot ever become tamei, even if you found all the proper qualifications of tzaras, because it was not divided into shvatim. The Chachamim, the sages, hold that the entire Yerushalayim was divided, or not divided according to shvatim, to any individual, because when David HaMelech conquered it, he conquered it for all the Jewish people, not for any individual. The Beis Hamikdash had an additional thing, because it used to be a threshing floor of a Rav Yevusi. David HaMelech bought it from him with big money, full money, and he collected money from all 12 shvatim. It's very unique. All the places in Eretz Yisrael, which it says that belong to the Jewish people, that we paid for it, so we didn't conquer it, we actually paid for it. So you can't have any type of argument whatsoever if it's historically Jewish. And these are places which have the most opposition today.
Hebron.
The Maras Machpelah, where the cave in Hebron, where Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov, Avram bought it for a lot of money, and there's tremendous contention today. David HaMelech bought it, right? David HaMelech bought the place of the Beis Hamikdash. That's a Temple Mount, as is Islamic Waqf, what they say.
Yeah.
And the place where Rachel is buried.
But my question is, Avram actually bought, but actually the cave of Machpelah.
Right.
Did he specify that only the Jews could remember Yeshua was also?
No, he says the cave underneath and the field on top, which is Maras Machpelah built.
Only for the Jews, not for actually Yishmael,
Correct.
in other words?
Right, Esav's head is buried there, but that's about it. None of his grandchildren come there today. And Shechem, which Yaakov Avinu bought Shechem from the place of Shechem, and that's where Yosef is buried. Also, that's a place of major contention today, right? Where the riots, specifically the places that were bought with full money, are the places where they have tremendous contention. The Ma'ikam Miflagi. What is the principle of this agreement if Yerushalayim, the holy city, could become tamei, impure, with negat tzaras, a spot of impurity, which is on the walls? Kana kama savar, the first opinion, which is the Chacham, the sages, they hold lo nischalka Yerushalayim l'shvatim. Yerushalayim has not been divided to any shvatim, to any tribes. Rabbi Yehuda holds nischalka Yerushalayim l'shvatim. Yerushalayim was divided for different tribes, and therefore he holds that a house in Yerushalayim could become tamei with tzaras. Tanakama holds the first opinion that Yerushalayim cannot become tamei with tzaras because it was not divided into shvatim, into tribes. The Rebbe one time had yichidus with maybe Rabbin or Yehuda Avner, I think it was Rabbin, someone who was an aide to Ben Gurion during the War of Independence. And he was trying to hold together a country without an army without any weapons.
Who actually,
Ben Gurion. And there was one time where he got a shipment of 500 weapons, and this aide of him, maybe it was Rabbi, maybe it was Ben Gurion, was telling the Rebbe about what was going on then. He got a shipment of 500 guns, 500 rifles, I think. And immediately a request came from the south that we have soldiers and it's a very strategic area. And we literally, if these weapons would be a lifesaver for us. From the north, Sfas, the Arabs are about to riot any moment. If we would have these weapons, it would save us. From all different areas. From Tel Aviv, he said we're in the center, but there's a bunch of Arab towns over here, and we're literally lacking weapons, improvising, please give us these weapons. And we have the manpower to man it. And then he got a request from Yerushalayim, the old city. He says, we're in the old city. We're not very strategic in location. We don't have a lot of manpower. We're mainly women and children. But we need these weapons just to protect us because we're the holy city. And he decided to give it to Yerushalayim. And when the Rebbe was told this, the Rebbe says he's very impressed that Ben Gurion would actually come to appreciate this. He's very impressed with it.
a Pintalayid in there.
Pintalayid. Every Jew has a Jew deep down.
Yeah.
And these are not just a machlokes, a discussion between Amoraim, but they go back to a discussion between Tanoim, a Mishnah. And if it goes to a Mishnah, then we don't argue it out. We just go based on the rules of the Mishnah. And with this, we're going to have a few diagrams, but let's read it first inside. The Tanya. We learned in Tanya, in a Brisa. Ma haya bechelko shel Yehuda. This is the Holy Land. This is a map of the Beis Hamikdash, the Mizbeach. Here is a general outline of the entire Beis Hamikdash, just from a bird's eye view, without any particular. The only vessel we're really showing in big is the Mizbeach, the altar. Yerushalayim was really in the portion, if I don't have it on the screen, but Yerushalayim itself is in the portion of Yehuda. Judah, right outside Yerushalayim is called the Harei Yehuda, the mountain, the Judean mountains. Binyamin, he was the only one of the brothers of Yosef who was not involved in the sale of Yosef. And because of that, it says, Ben Ksef of Shachin, he was merited to have the Beis Hamikdash in his portion.
I'm sorry, you said he wasn't involved
In the sale of Yosef, Binyamin.
Okay.
He was the only one not involved. Reuben was not involved in the sale, but it was his idea to throw him into the pit. Yehuda was the one who suggested to sell him. The original Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan, was in the portion of Yosef, right? In Shiloh, was in the portion of Yosef. But Binyamin was the only one not involved in his sale. And he merited to have the Beis Hamikdash built in his portion. Yehuda says, that's not fair. Yerushalayim is in my area. We conquered it. It's our portion. So they made a pshara. They made a compromise. And here you look at the Mizbeach. Here's a bird's eye view of the Mizbeach. Mizbeach has what's called a Yesod. Yesod means a foundation. On two sides of the Mizbeach, you had jutting out across the entire side a foundation. See, this is called the Yesod. On two sides, you did not have one. The Mizbeach is the most important aspect of the Beis Hamikdash. It was built for a place to bring karbanos, to bring sacrifices. We also put the Holy of Holies in there. So the Beis Hamikdash was in the portion of Yehuda. The Mizbeach, Yehuda's portion, went in a funny shape. I don't know why I went over here. So the Beis Hamikdash was in a funny, the portion of Yehuda was in a funny shape. Let me just, the Mizbeach. Here's a Mizbeach. Let's see if we go through pictures one by one. Here's a Mizbeach from one side. You see it does not have a foundation. Mizbeach from the other side has a foundation. You see in these two sides it has, and here it does not have on that side. Why does it stop over there? Because Yehuda and Binyamin, Yehuda's portion went and it jutted out to right in front of the Mizbeach. It was on two sides, and those two sides did not have a foundation because the Yesod is one of the most important parts of the Mizbeach. It was integral to many different aspects of the Avodah of the Mizbeach. So Yehuda's had the Mizbeach, but not the main part. The main part, which was the Yesod of Mizbeach, belonged to Binyamin, the other two sides, which had the Yesod. And in addition to that, that's just the base of Mizbeach, the Mizbeach in its stages. And in addition to that, the rest of the Mizbeach, the rest of the base of Hamikdash, the Holy of Holies, was all in the portion of Binyamin. Right, so the main holiest part of the Beis Hamikdash, and the most integral part, was in the portion of Binyamin, and the rest of it was in the portion of Yehuda. So as the Gemara says, the Brisa says, Yehuda, what part of the temple was in the portion of the tribe of Yehuda? Hatzvi-Bais, halashachot, hazarot. All of these areas, the outer areas of the Beis Hamikdash, which is the courtyards, the lishkas, the chambers of different things, all the outer parts of the Beis Hamikdash, the entire Temple Mount, outside of the holy areas. What was the portion of Binyamin? The entrance hall of the Holy of Holies. So here, the Ulam, so you go to the, where was that? It's further down. The Ulam, so the large building of the Beis Hamikdash, let's go like this. This large building in the back. And the Holy of Holies and Ritzua. Hoisi Yesis Mechalkai. And a strip of land issued forth from the area of the side of Yehuda went into the portion of the side of Binyamin. And on it, the Mizbeach was built. So the Mizbeach was built on the area of the tribe of Yehuda. So Yehuda got something. Binyamin the tzaddik, Binyamin the righteous one, was all the time agonizing about it. Why is a mizbeach not in my portion? You know, two sides of mizbeach. Why is it called Binyamin tzaddik? Binyamin the righteous one. We don't say everyone else tzaddik, the righteous, because the Gemara on Rabbi Basra says that Binyamin was one of four people who never sinned in his life and would never have died if not for the decree that after the sin of the tree of knowledge, that death would come to the world.
But Yosef had killed on his brothers, but he still called it tzaddik because they held back actually from.
Yosef's called it tzaddik, right? For more reasons, and yeah, and Binyamin is called Binyamin HaTzaddik. So every day he was agonizing. Levoila, he wanted to incorporate that portion of the Beis Hamikdash. Right, so he wanted to incorporate that portion to be part of his portion of where the Mizbeach is. And since with Ruach HaKodesh, with prophecy, he saw what was in the future. He was agonizing. Shenemar choyfef alav kol hayom, as it says in the Parashas V'Zois HaBracha. Choyfef alav kol hayom, he covers it throughout the day. Uvein ksefav shachein, and the Beis Hamikdash dwells between his shoulders. What does it mean between his shoulders? The Beis Hamikdash, the Holy Temple, was not on the highest part of the Hatzvi-Bais of the Temple Mount. It was a little bit lower than the highest part of the Temple Mount. It's called the shoulders, and the shoulders are the strongest part of the animal. When you put a yoke onto an ox, you put it onto the shoulders. So therefore, the Beis Hamikdash was on the highest portion. Beis Hamikdash, we're not here to outshine, outdo everyone. It's here to be a home for Hashem, and humility is required. And it says the Hashem rests between the shoulders of Binyamin in the blessing of Moshe too. Binyamin lefikach, meaning Beis Hamikdash will rest on the mountain of the Temple Mount. Lefikach zaka Binyamin v'nase ushpezichin l'shchina. Therefore, Binyamin was merited, and he became the host of the Shekhinah, of the Holy of Holies. He wasn't satisfied. He says, I have the holiest place in the world, the Kodesh Kodashim, the Holy of Holies, in my portion, but it's not enough. I want to do more. I want to do more. So what was in the portion of Binyamin, we said, was just the Yesod, right? Just those two sides of the Mizbeach, which had a Yesod, which had the main part. And therefore, because he wanted it so badly, Hashem gave it to him. Whatever people really want so much to do in the mitzvah, Hashem will eventually give it to them. The Medrash says more about this. He gives a mashal. There was a king who used to visit his children from time to time. And the king loved his youngest son more than anybody else. So the youngest son was always embarrassed, bashful. He's getting so much attention more than anybody else. And he was always like shy and feeling inadequate in front of his father. So the father turns to all the other sons and he says, you see my youngest son, who's so bashful, who's so doesn't hold himself so great? I want you to know that I'm not going to stay by any of you. I'm going to only stay by the youngest one. And so Hashem told to Binyamin, my food, which is a karbanis, will only be in your portion. Another thing is, there's a law in the US that a president can only be a president if he's born on American soil or an American embassy. Other laws have that too, that one of a king in England can only be born if they're born on English soil. So there was one of the royal family of England. They were born somewhere, so when the child is being born, they're born in a British embassy, whatever country they were. So in case they're king, they could be born on British soil. Binyamin was the only one of the Shvatim who was born in the Holy Land in Eretz Yisrael. Everyone else was born in Haran. Therefore, Binyamin, to be a host for Hashem, had to be someone who was from the beginning of his life born in Eretz Yisrael. Hashem also said, I want when the Jewish people daven, I should be filled with mercy on them. And Binyamin showed mercy to his brothers. He was never involved in his brother's sale. Binyamin was the only son of Yosef from his mother and his father. And being a full sibling, sharing mother as well, he had much more of an affinity than just a brother who was a brother only from a father. If you look at people, look at Muhammad had many children from different mothers. I don't know how well they get along today. The Sunnis and the Shiites. So Hashem said, because of these reasons, I'm going to only stay among Binyamin. The last thing is, it says, we see this today, that there's older children get married, they leave the house. The youngest child could stay in the house and stay forever and ever and not want to leave. Why? Because they're the youngest child. They don't have anyone else but their parents. And the parents want the youngest child. They don't want an empty house anymore. Same thing. Being the youngest of the 12 Shvatim, Hashem says, I want you to stay with me. I'm sort of homesick for you. I want you to be near me all the time. The Ritva writes that because of Binyamin's pain that he had, that he didn't get to have the Mizbeach in his portion, he was zoche, he was merited to have an extra strip of land going out, jutting into the place of the land of Yehuda and took over the main parts of the Mizbeach. The Kodesh Kodashim is in the west. The east is the side of Yehuda. The west is the side of Binyamin. The blessing that Yaakov gave to Binyamin, that Moshe gave to Binyamin, was which you quote was Chayfef Alav Kol Hayom. Chayfef Alav meaning he's let's pull it up again. He is floating. He covers it throughout the day. Uvenk Seif of Shachin. Chayfef Alav is covering him. That's going on the first base of Hamikdash. Kol Hayom is going on the second base of Hamikdash the entire day, because not just in the times when Hashem was revealed, that's Chayfef, covering, but even when Hashem wasn't revealed, Kol Hayom, we just had a base of Hamikdash, that's going on the second base of Hamikdash. And the last words, Uvenk Seif of Shachin, Hashem dwells among his shoulders, is going on the third base of Hamikdash. That also will be built in the portion of Binyamin. The Ishbitzer Rebbe, we brought from him before, the Meir Shilech, he adds on over here that we see from here that if anybody really wants something very strongly of Kedusha, something holy, something good, Hashem will give it to them. And because of his deep desire that he had, Hashem gave it to him. Even though one of the 10 commandments is Lo Sachmoid, don't be jealous, don't covet what someone else has. That's only when it comes to something else. Someone is richer than you, someone is brighter than you, smarter than you, nicer than you, more established than you. When it comes to ideas of Kedusha, Kina Slavim Tarbech Achmad, is good to want what the other person has. And such a Kina, if it comes because you want to outdo the other person, that's not a good thing. If it's coming because you want to get closer to Hashem, and I wish I could be on that person's level, that is a very good thing. And we see from Binyamin that Hashem was very happy, and Hashem blessed him because of this. The High Tanasab, our other opinion holds, Tanakama holds that Yerushalayim was not divided according to tribes. The Tanya, for we learned, you're not allowed to rent out houses in Yerushalayim because they don't belong to you. We went through this 2 days ago. You can rent out a house in Yerushalayim nowadays. If you own property in Yerushalayim, and hopefully all of you will, if you do, you're allowed to rent it out. Because now we don't have a Sanhedrin, and Eretz Yisrael is not divided according to tribes, according to Shvatim. Now you could rent it out, correct. It's interesting. There was somebody I met in Yerushalayim. He was one of the members of the choir of the great synagogue, and I was speaking with him, and he said he's being evicted. He has to move from his house. I said, why? He says, because it's very common in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, and maybe Yossi could tell me more about this. They have rentals or sales for 100 years, 101 years. And the place where he was living, 101-year term was just finishing, and now it's going back to the original owners, reverting to the original people. So you can imagine 101-year lease, 101-year.
Like Hong Kong.
So yeah, a lot of communist countries have that. You can rent a building for the government for 50 years, and you build it yourself. There is a Chabad house in California, which the people who sold the building sold it for 100 years. They didn't sell it to the Chabad house in perpetuity. It's a beautiful Chabad house there. It's in Thalvin Oaks, but it was sold for a 100-year lease. They're a public school in Borough Park, which is not being used anymore as a public school, because Borough Park now at this point is almost exclusively, Baruch Hashem, religious children. They wanted to, so a local cheder wanted to buy it, but they said we can't sell city property, and they gave a 100-year lease.
So it's rental.
Right. So that's common today. Today you are allowed to rent out areas in Yerushalayim. But during the times of the Beis Hamikdash, if you owned a house, you cannot rent out a place in Yerushalayim. Because it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the entire collective Jewish nation. So what they ended up doing in the times of the second Beis Hamikdash was they could rent out a bed. If I had beds, I could rent it out. The bed belongs to me. because people are not want to welcome guests. And imagine you're living in Yerushalayim, someone knocks on your door and says, "Hello, I want to stay here. House belongs to me." So during the later times, they would be allowed to rent out beds. Rabbi Eliezer ben Tzadok Omer, aflei mitos, you can't even rent out a bed. The fikach eres kachim balu shpischin noitel esim Israel. So how would they get paid? So the people who would bring hides, karbanos, an animal had a hide, they would take it from the people who were bringing the carbon, take it by force as their payment.
By force?
Yeah, they would take it by force because they would be using in their beds. So Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Tzadok holds that you can't even rent out a property, like a place. You can't even have an inn in Yerushalayim, and it would be sort of like a deal. How you could have they'd have to find a way to sort of take money. You wouldn't charge them, but you would take it by force. Now, it's interesting to understand Rabbi Eliezer opinion, Rabbi Eliezer Reb Shimon, because a bed is not land, it's not real estate, it's movable property. It should belong to me. How can I say I can't rent out beds? Seemingly, you can rent out a bed. So the Kovetz Shiurim, you know what that is? Chaim Wasserman?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Chaim Wasserman. Chaim Wasserman was a tremendous Talmid Chacham. He was killed in Baranovich. He was killed it's called the Mivtza Haravi, the fourth fort. There were 4 forts around the city of Kovna, and they took many Jews and killed them there. He was killed there with them as well. The Kovetz Shiurim, he wrote the Sefer Kovetz Shiurim. He's a tremendous Torah scholar. He wouldn't leave his yeshiva behind. He wouldn't leave Baranovich. He had a visa to go to England, and he could have escaped in time. He wouldn't take it until taking care of his yeshiva. Only after the yeshiva was disbanded, he ran away, went to Kovna, and then he ended up getting unfortunately killed over there. He gave shiurim in the ideas of Kiddush Hashem, explaining the kavanah you have to have, the brachos you have to have, was written down. I think it's recovered the shiurim that he gave. Rabbi Chaim Wasserman, his son, Rabbi Simcha Wasserman, opened the yeshiva in California. It was called Ur Chanan. Later on, he moved to his yeshiva to Eretz Yisrael. Chabad bought the yeshiva. Yeah, Rabbi Simcha Wasserman. So it's called Ur Chanan Chabad. And the condition was, he sold it for very, very inexpensive to yeshiva, Chabad yeshiva. But you always have to use a building. You can't move out of the building. The building always has to be a yeshiva. Which happened when the neighborhood moved, as we're learning in our Gemara, neighborhoods move, they moved the entire building. They took apart the building, put it onto trucks, and moved it 6 or 8 blocks up the road to where the yeshiva is today. But the building itself has to be always a yeshiva. So he holds.
It sounds like they gave the hides the note. The note says the hides of their sacrifice.
Right.
So they would have to give like a voucher or something that I can't pay you now for the bed, but I'll bring the hide later.
Correct. Yeah, it was sort of like a voucher. Correct. Right. Correct.
But it says lesser hides. One of the notes. What is that?
The hides?
A small animal or?
The lesser hides. The larger hides would go to the Kohanim of the shift. Say of the cows, they'll go to the Kohanim of the shift because they would they would take it as their reward. Now later on they were allowed to take so what Rabbi Chaim Wasserman writes is that the people were later on allowed to charge for the beds. And he says people would be unscrupulous and would start charging for the own houses. And they would say like this, listen, I can't charge for the ground, but the bricks are mine, the wood is mine, the roof is mine, right? Once you start making those differences, you're going to come to eventually charge for the house. So therefore they said, don't pay them for that. Pay them with the skin with the hides of the karbanos. And it wasn't, he said, necessarily enforced, but it was like a proper thing to do to leave the hides to the owners in order that they should want to host people again in the future. It's worthy to do it, but he says it wouldn't actually force people to do it by force.
Do they have a place in the area there where they process those hides?
Yerushalayim, I'm sure.
Pretty smelly, rough job.
Yeah,
You don't know. They have to process them somewhere close by, clean.
I was in a city in Israel called Nachlas HaChabad, well, Nikrit Malachi, but they have a neighbor called Nachlas HaChabad. So I was in the morning, early in the morning, I don't know, let's say 6 a.m. I was on the porch of that house, high up in a building, and the whole place smells like a chicken farm. So I asked what it is. I said there's a large kibbutz with a lot of farming right next to us, and depending what way the wind blows, that's the way it smells in the morning. On the other side is like a factory where they make, I don't know, something else, copper, I don't know, they make something in the factory, and if it blows from that direction, it smells like a furnace. If it blows from that direction, it smells like a farm. Depending what direction the wind blows, that's the way it smells that day. Pittsburgh itself also used to smell, right? Very much.
Like fertilizer?
Yeah, fertilizer.
For the chicken?
What time is it? 11:52. Well, let's chaperein. Today's a very special day. It's the first of NIssan. Let's chaperein a few halachas of NIssan, and if I'm going to talk about it this year, I'll make it already a minhag. Today is, according to one opinion, according to Rabbi Eliezer, according to Rabbi Yeshua, this is a day that Adam, the first man, was created. Today should be Rosh Hashanah, first of NIssan. Chassidus explains how that was done in a way of koyach, in a potential type of way. Today is called the day which Natal Asara Ataris took 10 crowns. Today is the first day of the Karban Nachshon, and should say of the 12 tribes, of the 12 leaders of all the Nasiim bringing their Karban. It's a minhag to say the Nasi. Today, every day to remember to say the Nasi of the day, with the Yiratzin after. Tonight, Beis NIssan, is the yahrzeit of the Rebbe Rashab.
Tonight you're saying.
Tonight, Beis NIssan, 2nd of NIssan. He passed away in the year 1920. I'm just going to bring up one little thing. So this is my, I guess, my namesake. This is what I guess personally connected to me. So I'll bring up a story connected to Rosh Chodesh NIssan. Today is 104th yahrzeit of the Chassid of Reb Chaim Shner Zalman Itkin. My father's father, who passed away very young at the age of 36. That happens to be the same age I am right now, actually.
Could people light a yahrzeit candle for the Rebbe Rashab's?
Yahrzeit, yeah, definitely, he definitely could. My grandfather was 9 when his father passed away, or 8, and he kept yahrzeit. He passed away in 96, so he kept yahrzeit for 88 years for his father. He passed away one day before the Rebbe Rashab at the age of 36, leaving 5 young orphans at home. The story was that he was a merchant. He was doing. He picked up some merchandise, and this is 1920. This is a time of the Russian Revolution, and there were all these competing groups in Russia: the Whites, the Reds, the Denekistan, the many other groups.
Greens.
What?
Greens.
The Greens? Well, they had Greens also. The Denikins. There was another group also.
Lots of groups. 15, 20 groups.
15, 20 groups.
All fighting each other and all fighting the Jews.
All fighting each other, all massacring the Jews wherever they went. And it was very dangerous to travel. Rabbi Posner from Pittsburgh, right? During that time period, his father was on a boat, and he threw him off a boat, and he died. Right? Rabbi Posner from Pittsburgh, his father was killed during that time period.
Oh, wow.
Right, by Cossacks on a ship. It was very dangerous for a Jew to go on a train. The Jews were thrown off trains all the time. there's so many stories. Or Simcha Gordetsky was in a place where there were Turkish soldiers which came in and killed all the Jews in one area.
My son had the murder of 100,000 Jews in the Ukraine in 1919.
1919, 100,000 Jews murdered in Ukraine. Mendel Chaim in Nezhin was killed, right? Was shot in 1919. Chassid was extremely close to the Rebbe Rashab, together with hundreds of other Jews at the same time. Terrible. It was almost a Holocaust, just wasn't as well documented, unfortunately, as the actual Holocaust. And he was coming back to the town of Nevel on Erev Shabbos on Friday, which is the last day of Adar, and he was attacked by a whole group of bandits, of these people. And they stole all the merchandise. He managed to escape. But they checked up his name, and he says, your name is Itkin, he comes from the town of Nevel. And they started, as he's running away, making fun of him. Oh, we're coming to Nevel next. Don't worry, we're not going to forget about you. When we come to Nevel, we're going to get all the Jews plus you. As he ran home, he got home Erev Shabbos. Baruch Hashem, he survived. And he came home. Shabbos comes in later. But he was so weak and so, you could say, over-shocked by this whole ordeal. He told his family, let's bring Shabbos early. Let's make Kiddush right away. He lied down to go to sleep, and he didn't wake up. He passed away that night in his sleep.
And who's this kid?
His name was Chaim Itkin.
And he was your
Father's father's father.
father's father. Okay.
And he passed away that Friday night, which was Shabbos. What? My great-grandfather. But I have the same name, Chaim Zalman Itkin, and I'm the same age as he was then.
And you were named after him.
I'm named after him, yeah. And he passed away, unfortunately. He had 5 young orphans. And his Levaya, his funeral was Matzah Shabbos. They brought him to the cemetery. They came back home. His widow with the children is back home now. She goes to sleep. She has a dream while she's sleeping. Her husband, who just passed away, this person here, comes to him and says, I need my kapata, my Shabbos coat. And he says, she tells him in the dream, who let you out? The watchman of the I think his name was Rabbi, I don't remember his name. He let you out from the cemetery. Who let you out? So he says, I was in heaven for only a very short time. And suddenly I saw a big commotion, and many neshamas, many souls were all running together. So I asked them, where are you going to? They said, we're going to welcome the Rebbe. The Rebbe is coming. The Rebbe Rashab means the Rebbe is coming. So when I said, if I'm going to greet the Rebbe, I need to put on my kapata. Now, unbeknownst to her, the Rebbe Rashab passed away that much of Shabbos that night in Rostov, several hundred miles away. Because of the wartime and no communication, it took a while for them to find out. In Rostov, in Nevel, the news that the Rebbe Rashab passed away that night. And she went the next day. She asked the elder Chassidim in the town of Nevel, great Chassidim, to explain, what does it mean, this dream? What does it mean the Rebbe is coming? And none of them could understand, but they were a little nervous. And unfortunately found out the news a little while later that Rebbe Rashab was stalik that much of Shabbos on Beis NIssan. Beis NIssan, the Rebbe always held a fabrengen. And also, Beis NIssan was customarily the day the Rebbe would bake matzah. The Rebbe would bake matzah 2 times. One on Beis NIssan, the 2nd of Nisan, and one on Erev Pesach after Chatzos, after midday, close to Pesach. And the Rebbe would give matzah to several locations, Eretz Yisrael, in these locations, and that matzah was from the matzah that was baked on the 2nd of Nisan, meaning it was the Rebbe's personal matzah. The Rebbe gave out to public seders far away, and the matzah that was baked Erev Pesach would be will be given to the local seders, the Rebbe's own sedarim, which many elder Chassidim were invited to, and cities that were close by. My father was zoche many years to receive matzah from the Rebbe on Erev Pesach for the entire Pittsburgh. He had somebody waiting for him outside 770, a courier taking it straight to the plane. It will be flown straight to Pittsburgh, and will come to Pittsburgh in time for the seder. The people would have afikoimen. They would all go to Rabbi Ephraim Rosemoon's house, or sometimes the Green's house, and they would divide the matzah, the Rebbe's matzah for the entire city. They divide it over here.
You know,
already the first night.
All the way
Right.
to Pittsburgh,
Matzah was baked Erev Pesach after Chatzos.
and then you, wow.
It's very special to get that matzah.
Mhm.
You can't clean. Everything used then has to be burnt. All the papers, everything, because it'll become chametz
I mean, Erev Pesach,
after Chatzos, after midday.
but how does it go all the way from New York to Pittsburgh so fast?
With a plane, with a courier. They spend the. So today is Beis NIssan.
Better than Amazon.
Oh yeah, faster than Amazon. No, so it's a very special day. It's Beis NIssan, and being today's Rosh Chodesh NIssan, it's a very opportune, special day. It says 10 crowns were given this day, and so Megillah, automatically, everyone should say if I bring tonight and take advantage of the special days. One more thing, I've done this in previous years. If anybody knows somebody in Pittsburgh that they could give matzah to, shmura matzah, or not otherwise have shmura matzah, I'll be very happy to provide. I have 120 boxes of 3 matzahs each to give out to community members, to give out to other people who do not have matzah. So I'll be very happy to provide. So shukayach.